folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Hirsch, and this week we are talking about life after Halloween ends. Is there a life after Halloween ends? And yes, we are talking about the Halloween franchise and where you see it going next. Or is there a future for Halloween? That's a question in itself. And I'm going to raise a few different topics of where I could possibly see the Halloween franchise going. And I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you guys think? Where do you see it going? Do you see a future for the Halloween franchise? So we all saw Halloween Ends, and how that ended was very, very definitive and final, It's like, wow, and I have to give credit where credit is due to David Gordon Green and company for having the balls to end it. The film lives up to the title. It really does. And spoiler alert, we are going to be talking some spoilers from Halloween Ends. So if you haven't seen Halloween Ends yet, please do so before you watch this video, because the main thing I'm going to talk about is, spoiler alert, the death of Michael Myers. He was killed definitively, very much so, in Halloween Ends. I don't see him coming back unless they do some kind of multiverse thing like like they did with Spider-Man No Way Home, or the Marvel Universe kind of thing, which I suppose you could do, and it could be interesting, So yeah, that is one thing they could do, like a multiverse Halloween universe kind of thing, where we just do like what if kind of scenarios, because as it stands, the Halloween franchise has a few different timelines. You had the original and part 2, that can be one, and then you have 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, that's another timeline. There's a lot of different ways you can go with Halloween, a lot of different timelines, so you could, by all rights, do kind of a multiverse kind of thing within the Halloween universe. And that could be interesting, You could see, different versions of Michael Myers. You could go back to the, Halloween 6 version of Michael Myers, or the Halloween 2 version of Michael Myers, You could go back to do the third film in the Rob Zombie franchise there, You could do a lot of different things. But the big question is, should they? And I've been pretty open about that, and my thoughts is, before Halloween Ends was even mentioned, I was saying I think at some point they should end the franchise for good, Why? Because I just don't want to see it go on forever. I really enjoy the franchise as it is, but I don't want to see it watered down and all this different ridiculous timelines getting so convoluted. It's already convoluted as it is. I don't want to see it go further down the rabbit hole with all these different timelines and all this crap, Eventually, everyone's going to get tired of it, It's like they're going to be beating it to death, I don't want to see that happen, so I am perfectly fine with Halloween Ends being the end. And I think it should be, because I don't think Michael Myers should come back from this, He can't, really. Unless they do, like an alternate timeline. Go back to the Halloween 2 timeline or whatever, Could they do that? Yeah, but I think at this point it might be kind of silly, But that's just my thoughts, I'm okay with this being the last one. Now, was I satisfied with the film Halloween Ends? Not completely, but I was satisfied with the way it ended. I think that's the way it should have ended. That's the way Michael Myers should go out. He went out brutally and viciously. Why? Because he is a psychotic murderer that has terrorized the town of Haddonfield for over 40 years now. And I thought it was kind of poetic the way they did that, the way they had, all the townsfolk come in to see him die, when he was put into the grinder thing there. I thought that was the way they should do it. That felt right to me, That felt like closure. And that, to me, felt like the end. Like, that's it for the Halloween franchise. But a lot of people don't feel that way. A lot of people want to see it go on forever, Michael Myers lives forever, that kind of thing. With that being said, if they make another one, I'm going to see it. Why? Because I am a Halloween fan. I'm a Halloween nerd. I'm a big fan of the franchise. So I would feel obligated, like, yeah, I need to see it. No matter how big of a piece of crap it could be or might be, I'm still going to go see it. It just is what it is, So, if the franchise does continue, how would you like to see it continue, And I thought one of the things, and I said it before, that would be interesting for me was if they did a television series, but Friday the 13th kind of stole that thunder and kind of took that one out of the equation, because they're having a Crystal Lake series for Friday the 13th, which is going to be a prequel for the story of Jason, I guess. And that's kind of what I was interested in with Halloween, having a television series. Maybe not quite the same idea of being a prequel or whatever, because we already saw that with, the Rob Zombie Halloween kind of was like that. But I think you could use a television series to see those stories that we never got to see, like, part 4, continuing with Jamie Lloyd being the killer, that kind of thing. Or you could do some more anthology one-shot stories like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch did. Yeah, there's all kinds of things you could do. You could continue the Rob Zombie version. Yeah, you could do so many different things. You could go back to Halloween Resurrection and continue that. You could make Halloween 9. Yeah, there's so many different things you could do, but now let me just say, let me just ask another question. What do you guys think of the David Gordon Green trilogy as a whole? Do you feel like it was worth it? I have mixed feelings about it, part of me says, I don't know. Because the one thing that has always bothered me about it, and still bothers me about it, is the fact that they removed Halloween 2 from the timeline, They retconned Halloween 2, and you guys know how much I love Halloween 2, so it still pisses me off to this day. And I think this series would have benefited from having that still in place. Why? Because I think it would have made things more personal between Michael and Laurie Strode. It would have been more personal instead of just random that she kind of runs into Michael for whatever reason, Like in the 2018, yeah, it was the doctor that brought them together, And then in Halloween Ends, they're brought together once again. But just through circumstance, like with the Corey character, that's how Michael kind of is resurrected in a way. Because he is in contact with this young kid Corey who's going down the dark path, and he runs into Michael Myers, and Michael Myers kind of shows him the way how to be an effective and efficient killer, At least they touch on that a little bit. They don't get too deep into that part of it, but that's one thing about Halloween Ends that I thought was kind of interesting. But once again, because of what happens with Corey, that's how Michael kind of stumbles into Laurie's life again at the end, you know. I think it would have been much more interesting and powerful and personal if they had kept the brother-sister storyline from Halloween 2. I know a lot of people don't like the brother and sister storyline, but I always did. I always thought it was a nice, like, shocker and made things real interesting. And I like what they did going forward with the franchise with that storyline. Yeah. Were there issues with 4, 5, and 6 and stuff like that? Yeah. But I liked a lot of the things they did with that aspect of the storyline, the brother and sister storyline. I always hate when people talk about Halloween 2 and it's like, there's all this negativity, like, when I watched the recent documentary, In Search of Darkness, all they did was rip on Halloween 2 and the negativity that went into the making of Halloween 2 from 1981. It just annoys me because I think Halloween 2 is freaking fantastic. But that's just me. This is all just my opinion, guys. You can think how you want. Of course, you can form your own opinions. And yeah, I want to hear them in the comments below. Now, another thing a lot of people say is a lot of people prefer the H2O version of Laurie, which did keep the Halloween 2 storyline intact. And in this film, yeah, we got to see a tortured Laurie Strode who is sinking in alcohol, drowning her sorrows, and traumatized from the events of the first 2 films. And she had to go and change her name. She moved somewhere else. She moved out of Haddonfield and tried to move on with her life. But of course, Michael comes back, you know, so he's back into her life. But a lot of people prefer that version of Laurie Strode to the, you know, David Gordon Green trilogy of Laurie Strode. I'm not sure how I think about that, you know, because H2O is not a film that I go back to that often. Yeah, I do like Jamie Lee Curtis's performance, but I have some issues with a lot of other aspects of that film. But as far as Laurie Strode goes, yeah, you could make a good case for that that version of Laurie Strode is more tormented and it feels more realistic because of the whole brother and sister angle. Whereas it's kind of a stretch in David Gordon Green's trilogy where, you know, it's been 40 years, you know, since the events of the original film. And, you know, you would think after 40 years you might be able to move on, but when you had what happened with Halloween 2, that would have made it more interesting to me. But anyway, I digress. Getting back to how we can see the franchise going forward, yeah. I think it would be interesting, and I would not be surprised at all if they did a remake of Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, or a sequel to Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Why? Because this film, like it or not, has gained quite the cult following in recent years. And I think now that the whole Michael Myers saga is done, yeah, I'd be interested in seeing what they could do with that. You know, a couple, even if it's not Season of the Witch, what they could do with, like, continuing the series as an anthology series could be interesting. You know, these one-shot Halloween-based storylines, you know. I think it could be interesting. I'd be interested to see what they could do with that. Either in the form of a television series or the movies, you know. Because we've had plenty of films with Michael Myers now, so I wouldn't necessarily be against it, you know. Now, should it be a remake of Season of the Witch? Should it be a sequel to Season of the Witch? Or should it just be random one-shot Halloween stories? I don't know. But I think it could work. Or could they go back to, like, what I said with the Jamie Lloyd story? I think that could be interesting to see what it would have been like if Jamie Lloyd was the killer and took over the mantle of Michael Myers. Or, if we get back to Halloween Ends, could we see Corey, could we see his story continue? And then you think, well, he got killed, Well, it's the movies. They could always make something up, right? You can't really make anything up about Michael Myers because he was completely incinerated in that machine, but Corey, you could make something up, But that could be interesting if we did the next film with Corey as the killer and have him wear that cool, like, clown mask that he had, that scarecrow mask he had. I thought that was pretty cool. And that could be interesting, kind of continuing that story because, Allison is still alive. Technically, Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode is still alive at the end of Halloween Ends. You could technically bring her back into it, You certainly could bring Allison back into the franchise using that story, Yeah, that could be interesting, I think, Especially where they had a romantic relationship. That could be very interesting. How would she handle this? This is the guy that she was in love with, and he's out there killing people, That could be interesting. But yeah, guys, where would you like to see the Halloween franchise go forward? Or do you want to see it go forward? That's a big question. Me personally, I think it's fine with it being over because we have 13 movies now for us to watch for the rest of history, Halloween has a very rich history, and say what you will about certain sequels. Yeah, some of them are bad, some of them are good, but they're all watchable, I can have fun with all of the films. It's certain things I find good about every movie, Even Halloween Resurrection, I find a couple cool things about it, but not very much, but yeah, even Halloween 3 I can still enjoy, even though it doesn't have Michael Myers. Halloween Ends I can enjoy, even though there's very little Michael Myers. And it always annoys me the fact that Corey's character is like 95% of the movie, for Christ's sake. This character that they introduce in the third and last movie of the trilogy. So yeah, each sequel in the franchise, outside of Halloween 2, I always have issues with something, Halloween 2 is the one that I really don't have a lot of issues with. I think it's the perfect slasher sequel. I think it's the greatest horror sequel, period, but that's just me, of course. But yeah, all the others I have issues with, like Halloween 4, I felt like it wasn't scary enough, I love the performances of Danielle Harris and Donald Pleasance and Ellie Cornell. They're great characters, but I just wish it was scarier. Now, Halloween 5 had a lot of good, scary stuff and suspenseful scenes, but then you had these cardboard, caricature, cutout characters, that were just fodder for Michael Myers to kill off. You had some annoying characters in Halloween 5 that kind of drag it down a little, but I still enjoy Halloween 5. There's a lot of great stuff in there. Same thing with 6, like with part 6, I don't like a lot of the acting is bad, like real B-movie kind of acting. And that's my problem with part 6, including Tommy's character, I didn't like him in Halloween 6 either, and I like him. But in Halloween H2O, it's very Scream-ish. It's very similar to the Scream franchise, and that has always bothered me about it. And it always bothers me that Halloween H2O ignores 4, 5, and 6. So yeah, like I said, every film in the franchise, every sequel outside of the first two films I have some issues with, but outside of the original I think is just perfect, and I think it's the greatest horror film ever made. And Halloween 2 I think is the greatest sequel ever made, but any sequel after that I have issues with here and there, but I can find good in all of them as well. But at any rate, guys, yeah, what do you guys want to see? Is there life after Halloween ends, and where do you want to see the franchise go next? Do you want to see a multiverse type story within the Halloween franchise, the Halloween universe, different one-shot stories, different what-if-like scenarios? What do you want to see? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared. Folks, don't forget to grab your Sean Patrick Urshan gear and represent the Horror Corner. Also, check out these awesome mugs we have, perfect for your coffee. And definitely check out the Horror Hangout live stream t-shirt and represent the legacy of the Horror Hangout. Check out the link in the description below this video.